The open world Zelda games are highly praised and fantastic games with great mechanics, but Nintendo sacrificed the soul of the series' iconic story for the ability to go anywhere and do anything in whatever order. Imagine spending dozens of hours, if not hundreds, exploring every corner of the world, solving puzzles and defeating challenging bosses, only to end up with a boring story with characters you don't care for or stakes that don't exist, because the story doesn't build tension at all. The Zelda series has always been known for its sense of adventure, and the two open world games best exemplify this by letting you run around anywhere, do anything, and discovering new things, but it lacks a meaningful story. The series used to be your typical hero's journey, setting off on an adventure, collecting items, and watching you and your companion grow, while Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom place a larger focus on exploration and its physics engine, which is somewhat understandable. I mean, this was the formula for 3 decades up to that point, it needed a change. However, lackluster story isn't what Zelda veterans like. We love rich story, and it's not impossible to give up freedom and have amazing moving stories, as games like Red Dead Redemption 2 have proved that this is very possible. Listen, don't get me wrong, I love these games, they're phenomenal games and I think everyone should experience them, so don't come after me with your pitchforks for saying these things, okay? Cool, now that we have that out of the way. After I went through Tears of the Kingdom, I couldn't help but to feel that something was missing from the game, and I just felt quite disappointed, after Nintendo spent years hyping up this game, and so many people thought that this game would have a great story unlike Breath of the Wild. But unfortunately, it just so happened to repeat its same formula, right? You just collect the memories and nothing of note happens in the present. Breath of the Wild led to a huge surge of open world games with its freedom and engaging gameplay. The issue is, other games do it better in some departments. You have Rockstar's hit GTA series and Red Dead Redemption. They immerse players in their world with so many tiny details you can miss. Hell, even free-to-play open-world gachas do better in the lore department. Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves keep players anticipating the next patch's story just to dissect the lore. Meanwhile, Nintendo makes you view memories, clear some dungeons which are fine, and then makes you do copy-paste mini-dungeons which get annoying after a while. In Breath of the Wild, you're looking at your memories from 100 years ago, and Tears of the Kingdom, it's Zelda's from 10,000 years ago. In Breath of the Wild, it made sense collecting them out of order as you slowly recall the events from 100 years ago, all culminating to a final memory, showing off how you got here. But in Tears of the Kingdom, you can see them out of order, spoiling certain information for the story. If you choose to go out of order because why not, you did it in the first game, it should be fine in this one. I mean, being able to see something like Memory 13 and Memory 2 kills any tension that you could have had in the first place. Hell, the game encourages this, but all that, it leaves you with something that just feels like reading a book with the pages all shuffled. Sure, it's nice being able to see what Zelda was up to in the past, but there's nothing for Link to experience in the present area. In both games, you have the looming threat of Ganondorf threatening Hyrule, but there's no real sense of urgency. Just take your time and go collect the 900 little turds. Of course, I'm not saying the game should rush you into completing it, but it should give you a reminder of the threat of Ganondorf. It would be nice, like how areas change after you defeat Divine Beast. For example, in Xenoblade X, there are enemy alien factions all over the map, stationed in bases, reminding you of the fight for survival in a harsh world, or how in the epilogue there's just this massive ship looming over you in the sky. It would be nicer to see smaller and grander changes to the world and how it reacts to the player's progress. Wuthering Waves is called a Genshin clone, and Genshin is called a Zelda clone, but these two games do something Nintendo didn't, and that is using a linear story for its open world. I mean, every other game does too, but just let me cook here, okay? These games offer a world where you can freely roam, but the game forces you into a linear story. You can't view the acts out of order or even experience other regions out of order. The story is very linear. However, as a quality of life improvement, the game lets you skip to newer Archon quests, since it is a lot of story to go through. Now, the respective regions are still linear, and while oftentimes Genshin, the stakes are almost non-existent, it can bring out some amazing character arcs like Furina's. Meanwhile, Wuthering Waves has been on a roll with its story. During the final Renacita quest, the threat of the Dark Tide felt incredibly real, which is the payoff of Chapter 2 building up to this moment, and it is great being forced to watch things in a linear manner, as it builds off a greater payoff. But hey, If that wasn't enough, let's look at Red Dead Redemption 2. And yes, I know, everyone compares games to Red Dead Redemption 2, but I think that this is very vital for this video. When you start a mission, you have specific actions, and you just can't rush into them either. Hell, sometimes missions are just riding around in your horse listening to people talk. When the game controls the pacing, you simply just can't skip through something by riding your horse faster to the destination. You're locked in there. Because the writers know when you'll see and view a scene, it allows for characters to have proper arcs and amazing emotional cutscenes, such as Arthur catching a cough building fear as to what's gonna happen. Link in these games barely has an arc. Sure, he has a cute romance with Zelda in the memories, and he does regain his memories, but even though Link can be a self-insert for you, he's the silent protagonist, and it should stay that way. That doesn't mean that he can't go through arcs. Take Wind Waker for example. In this game, Link wasn't even chosen. He's just a kid who wants to save his sister. He forces himself to become chosen by the gods. It's this growth that lets people feel more attached to Link, even if I and many others already love the Link of this era. Genshin and Wuthering Waves, while allowing you to go anywhere, do lock certain things behind the story, and Wuthering Waves is far more notorious for this. Sure, Inazuma was locked behind some story, but the only areas that are really gated off behind in Genshin, it's smaller sub-areas that most players will just skip through, unless for some reason they had to fight a specific boss there or they have to farm materials there. Now, Wuthering Waves is very guilty to this, as multiple times areas are gated off until you reach a certain point in the story, which players will need to go through it to reach that new area if they want to fight the specific world boss or collect materials for their new character. By gating off areas and the content behind it, the game makes you care about the plot. I mean, either that, or you just skip the story, but it's actually good and actually worth reading. But it's all up to you. Now, I do think Zelda should gate off major areas, but for its open world? Hell no! It kills the whole vibe that it's going with, and it would be nicer to have just like a secret passageway open up after doing a certain story quest that lets you fight a challenging boss for a better reward. Let's talk about villains. In Tears of the Kingdom, Ganondorf is barely there, which is a waste considering how perfect his design is. Sure, you have Phantom Ganon encounters, but you don't really run into him or a minion during the story. Think about the encounters you had with Xanth in Twilight Princess or Girahim in Skyward Sword. While the main villain would be off somewhere or waiting to be revived, these minions, they would help build his presence. In Red Dead Redemption 2, the main antagonist is the betrayal of your own gang and the people you considered family and civilization closing in on you. You can feel the story get more tense as Dutch's dream of the frontier begins to die and his options dwindle as the world closes in on the gang, leading to the deaths of some of your gang members along the way due to the government, bad luck, or betrayal. In Tears of the Kingdom, the clone Zelda was a great idea, but it was done poorly. Hell, I barely remember her at first. It was mysterious thinking it was the real Zelda until the game just tells you and kills all the hype behind it. This sort of wasted potential just makes Ganondorf feel underutilized and doesn't contribute much to his threatening presence until the final battle, which while nice how the final fight went, I would have liked to see him show off more of his power. The question is, can we have open world exploration and fun gameplay we all love with an amazing story for the series we all know? Of course we can. It's been proven that it can be. The lack of story in Breath of the Wild made sense. You lost your memories, and the main idea of the game was discovery, so a bare-bones story can be accepted since everything happened in the past. But in Tears of the Kingdom, we already explored this world. Sure, it's rebuilding, but sometimes it doesn't feel like it is. We needed a story that used the world to its advantage while keeping all the freedom if you wanted to do your own thing. The freedom the game gives us isn't that useful. It's empty of meaning. A ruined Hyrule being empty made sense, but one that's recovering and rebuilding should have more life in it, and more to do giving purpose to re-exploring this world we knew. It's better to be forced to go to certain areas in an order, allowing the devs to know what the player will and won't know during the story, giving the devs more idea on what to write instead of just repeating the same cutscenes when you complete a dungeon. What people love about Zelda is going to the dungeons, getting the item, and seeing what the item can do in the next dungeon or in the overworld. It would be nice to keep certain items in dungeons like they have in the story, allowing Link to feel more powerful as he completes his dungeons. But hey, this doesn't mean the story has to be completely linear, one quest after another at certain points of the story. You can have a few missions to do in any order, which worked for Red Dead Redemption 2, and that game inspired Tears of the Kingdom. So why not allow the player to do that in practice? It's already being done in the game with major story beats, instead of it being main quest markers. Plus, most players complete the dungeons in a very specific order anyway. I love the gameplay and freedom of the new area. Goofing off is fun, but I miss the story moments of the older games. At the end of the day, the Wild Era gave us an incredibly fun playground, but the freedom it gave us isn't enough. We want to feel like our actions and feats in the world matter, not just a fun physics engine to torture Koroks with, but something that makes my actions matter to the people that inhabit this world. If the next Zelda game is open world, which I think it is, because it made Nintendo a lot of money, I hope Nintendo looks back at their older Zelda games and looks at how other open world games structure their story while keeping the feeling of their freedom intact. Give us a reason to be excited. Make us cry. Make Ganondorf fight back when we progress. Show us he's a real threat early on. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy on the internet who likes to talk about video games. If you enjoyed this deep dive analysis, make sure to hit that like button, and it helps the channel a lot, and subscribe if you want to see more game analysis and stuff. I've got a few good ideas for the next few weeks, and I think you guys might like that. But with that, thank you for the growth that we've been having. It's amazing, and I love seeing how much I'm growing lately. I love the feedback, and well, until next time, see ya!